Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Pradajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mishnapad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtotar Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parivajagacharya Ashtotar Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now, can you move that drum from there so that you can move over there? Because this is the lady side. You move the drum, he'll sit there. Is that okay? Thank you. Yeah, why don't you can put it on the bench back there if you want. And one other thing, if you can hand me that mic. Hare Krishna. Okay. All right. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 31st day of December 2025 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 15 entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person, text number 8 on page 601. Shariram Yadavapnoti Yat Chapi Utkramati Shwaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayur Gandhan Ibashayat Shadiram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat Shadiram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat Shadiram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat. No. Shadiram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat Shadiram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat. You want to try? Yad Shadiram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat. Bhushan. Shariram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat. Prabhu, you want to try? Sharirang Yadavapnoti Yadkrapyut Tamatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Gayodandhan Ibashayat. Ladies. Sharirang Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat. Want to try? Shadiram Yadavapnoti Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha Grihidvaitani Sangyati Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat. Bad. Okay. No? Don't have to do it. One note on the C. The C in Sanskrit always sounds like a CH. Cha. Chop. Chop. For future reference. Anyone online tonight? Okay.
Shariram yada apnoti
Shadiram Yadavapnoti
Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha
Yadchapyut Kramatiswaraha
Grihidvaitani Samjati
Grihidvaitani Sangyati
Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat.
Vayu Gandhan Ibashayat. Shadiram, I'll say these myself, you just read along silently. Shadiram, the body, yat as avapnoti gets, yat as cha api also, utkramati gives up, īśvara, the Lord of the body. Grihitva, taking, etani, all these, sangyati goes away. Vayuhu, the air, gandhan, smells, iva, like, ashayat, from their source. Smells means fragrances here. Okay, translation. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus, he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. Purport. Here the living entity is described as īśvara, the controller of his own body. If he likes, he can change his body to a higher grade, and if he likes, he can move to a lower class. Minute independence is there. The change his body undergoes depends upon him. At the time of death, the consciousness he has created will carry him on to the next type of body. If he has made his consciousness like that of a cat or dog, he is sure to change to a cat's or dog's body. And if he has fixed his consciousness on godly qualities, he will change into the form of a demigod. And if he is in Krishna consciousness, he will be transferred to Krishna Loka in the spiritual world and will associate with Krishna. It is a false claim that after the annihilation of this body, everything is finished. The individual soul is transmigrating from one body to another, and his present body and present activities are the background of his next body. One gets a different body according to karma, and he has to quit this body in due course. It is stated here that the subtle body, which carries the conception of the next body, develops another body in the next life. This process of transmigrating from one body to another and struggling while in the body is called karshati, or struggle for existence. Om jnana timirandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshur unmilitam mena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So that word karshati, that comes from the previous verse. This verse, the previous verse and this verse are describing the constitutional position of the living entity and the means of transmigrating from one body to another. So previous verse, very famous, Mama Vangsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana Manakshashtani Indriyani Prakritistani Karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So this is the nature of the living entity. Indestructible, we're never born, we never die. Najayate mrite vakadachan, which is very encouraging in one sense. In another sense, it means that we have to have a broad view of our existence. We've lived before many times, and we will live again in another body. Now, at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, as I pointed out last night, Krishna, practically his first verse of instruction is Dehi nosmin yata dehi komaram yoganang jara, which it's a very nice way which anyone can understand that we're transmigrating, because we've had so many different bodies in this very life, is it not? Not completely different. I mean, with the same body, we look something like what we looked like 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But we can all remember, I like to, when we were 8, there are certain, we can reach back certain high points of experience that we had. All through 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up to our present age, we can recall things, right? But who can deny? The body has changed. The body has changed and the mind has changed. So this is called the gross body, and the mind and intelligence of the subtle body. So we're constantly, the soul is the particle, as Krishna mentions in the previous verse, mamai vanksha. Anksha is like a good analogy, which is very common here. We're next to the ocean. You go down to the ocean with a little cup, you fill it half with water, and you'll find that if you analyze that water, it's got the same chemical property as the ocean. It's salty and it's got a whole lot of chemicals in it, right? But quantitatively, there's a vast, vast difference. Same thing with the sunshine. Sunshine, I think the scientists have figured, to make little particles, photons, So each photon has a little bit of light and a little bit of heat. You add them all together, and by the trillions and trillions, you get what we call the sun. The sun is heating this world and is providing light. But the sun itself is vastly more powerful than the individual rays of the sun. So similarly, we are Krishna's anksha, meaning that we have his qualities in minute degree. He's conscious, we're conscious. He has a form, he has activities, we have a form, we have activities, as a soul. But in our conditioned state, we've lost our spiritual nature. But spirit means eternal, never born, never dies. That's the Sat in Satchidananda, eternal, right? Eternal, full of consciousness and full of bliss. Now that's our real nature, but in our present state, as physical bodies, we're anything but Sat. We're certainly temporary, mortal, right? And are we full of unlimited knowledge? No. We know a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and there's millions and billions of things we don't know. What to speak of Ananda? We're all looking for pleasure, and we can find various little pleasures in the sense gratification, but they have a beginning and an end. But that's just a very, very pale reflection of the ever-increasing, unlimited, and unending pleasure that's there in the spiritual world, that we can also experience when we repair or revive our link with Krishna, which is a link of loving devotional service. That love is the key element. As Krishna describes in the 9th chapter, text 27, the famous verse about, or is it 26, about prasadam. Patram, pushpam, palam, toyam, yome bhaktya payachati, tadaham bhaktu paditam ashnami prayatatmanam. So patram is the leaf, pushpam is flower, palam is fruit, and toyam is water or any liquid. So these are all vegetarian substances, right? So you take all the varieties of them, and Krishna says, "Oh, you make nice preparations of those, and offer them to me with love and devotion, and I will eat it." Now, the materialist is saying, "Yeah, he eats it." Well, I notice you offer it on the altar, and then when you come in to get it, it's still there. How is it eaten? You see? But you know, there's a pastime where it was actually eaten. You remember that? I don't know if you remember the CC. I forget the names, but the nice devotee family is the father and the son. The mother must be there somewhere, but so he had to go somewhere. So he told his son, he's a young boy, maybe 4, 5, 6, maximum, and he said, "Could you please make the offering, and make sure the Lord eats, okay?" So he had learned from his father how to make the offering and bow down and everything, So then he left the altar and he's looking, but he's peeking in behind the curtain. He's not eating because he doesn't know that he eats just by looking. So finally he complained to the Lord, "Will you please eat? My father will be so angry with me, So by the sincerity, he actually ate that time. So then after some time the father comes back and he says, "Did you make the offering?" "Yes, Father," And so he opens the curtain. "Where's the prasadam?" He said, "Oh, the Lord ate it." "Yeah, right, But then, so he made the offering again, he did the same thing, and he saw that he actually did eat it, and the father was, he was very, so that happens rarely. Also with Chirachora Gopinath, he's told about. But the Lord can eat just by looking, by seeing it. He sees, the key element is not, whether you just added enough salt and spicing and cooked it. No. That should be there in devotion. But really what he's looking for is how much love and devotion is offered with. That's why in that verse he mentions bhakti twice. Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati tadaham bhaktyu paditam ashnami prayatatmanah. So that which is these 4 ingredients, vegetarian ingredients, which is prepared with love and offered with love, I will accept it. So that's what Krishna is looking for in whatever service we do, you see. Whether there's really a sense of, "Oh, I'm doing this for Krishna, I'm doing it to please him." And that culminates ultimately in the soul being freed of the encumbrances of all of the material attachments and all the karma that we've accrued from life in the material world. That's mentioned here, that the process of transmigration is, let's see, we read Shariram Yadavapnavni. Yes. So the living entity materially, it carries the different conceptions of life from one body to another. So how does he carry? In the mind. When we do anything, you see, so we do something, we want to, this is the science of advertisement, right? To somehow plant the desire seed in your mind. Even you're driving and there's a billboard on the side. In those 4 seconds when you see the billboard, they try to capture your attention and implant the seed. And then you forget all about it. But then when you want something like that to eat or buy a car or whatever it is, think, well, I think I'll let me check out the Ford Mustang, whatever you saw. You don't really remember, but it plants a desire seed. So whenever we engage in material activities, first of all, there's karma. If we're just blindly eating anything and everything, then we're getting very much entangled in karma, bad karma, because I like to give the example that some new people there, forgive me, you've heard it 4 times, 5 times. When I was a kid, I was growing up. I wouldn't grow up in a devotee family, but obviously. And maybe I was 12, 13. We had a bowling league. Every Saturday night we go out bowling. So one day, this was like 1962 or something, and suddenly we saw something was near where the bowling alley was. There was some construction going on, and when it was finally built, it was a McDonald's restaurant. First one. This is the beginning of it. And we said, oh, great! Before we go bowling, we can have our French fries, and maybe we'll have a cheeseburger, like that. We didn't think there was anything wrong. We thought this was a great advantage. So time goes on, and I finally joined Hare Krishna. I wouldn't go near a hamburger, my God, because you're conscious. You get a little conscious. Well, the poor cow from which this hamburger came, Even before, I was a vegetarian for several years before I joined, partially on that ethical, and health means. So that's one thing you learn in Krishna consciousness, that whatever you do, it has a good or bad effect, your karma. If you're doing kind things, if you're doing charity, you're helping other people, that's good activity, and it goes into your good side of your bank account. It means in your next life, you'll maybe be prosperous or whatever, and so it's good. But without knowledge, you don't know. Yes, you're doing such nice activities, charity, and it's Christmas time. All right, let's open up the free pantry, and people can come. But what are they serving? Spaghetti and meatballs. This and that. In other words, without knowledge, you're going to be entangled in bad karma, and you'll keep coming back to another material body, and often you can go down. You can go down. This is another thing I learned from my morning walks. I take a morning walk every day. And if it's too cold, you don't see so many people walking their dog. But it gets a little warmer, and then there's always the dog walkers. And you can see, there's affection there. Otherwise, it wouldn't take so much trouble. You wouldn't, you develop a relationship with the dog. And you very well may think of that dog when death comes, and that you can become a dog. They're also living entities. They have senses, and then they don't have karma, though. So you come up again to the human form. So the human form of life is a great opportunity. It's a great gift, and we should use it wisely. That's the great value. Srila Prabhupada worked so hard to produce these books and start this movement and everything, so that people could learn all of these points that are not taught or understood about who we are, what karma is. How we can purify our lives so that we can ultimately escape from this round of birth, old age, disease, and death, birth, old age, disease, and death. And there's what is called the threefold miseries, which include those that are caused by our own body and mind. You may be in a very comfortable state in the sense, you're not in any great distress externally, but you're in great anxiety. How will I pay the rent? Or how is my child doing? He's ill, he's in the hospital. So your own mind is giving you a trouble. And then there's other living in Adi Bhautik, very common. Many times it's other human beings who are giving you trouble, I remember I read this play when I was a young guy. I was into existential philosophy and all of that. And it was, I think, No Exit. Maybe it was by, I forget, one of those French philosophers, existential philosophers. And I read, and the one thing that sticks out for me from that play was that there was a line, hell is other people. Can you imagine being in a situation like that? A mentality, it's frightening. But that it can be like that if you're in prison or something like that. So other people, bugs, animals, viruses, right? The pandemic can give us fear and so much trouble. And then there's the adi-daivik miseries. Climate change, the fires, the hurricanes, the droughts, the things that are happening. Now it's interesting because ultimately we have what we call anthropogenic climate change. In other words, it's caused by human activity, pouring all these greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, changing the thing. And this big glacier down in Antarctica is melting. If it melts, then it'll be 12 feet higher. The ocean will be 12 feet higher out here. So is it adi-daivik or is it adi-atmic or adi-bhautic? But anyway, one way or another, this is what material life means. And we all know it, that sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, sometimes there's horrific things happen. So, but this is not natural. We belong in the spiritual realm. We are exiles. We have left there out of ignorance, thinking that we can enjoy separately from Krishna. But that inevitably ends in birth, old age, disease, and death, and frustration. So Krishna consciousness and this knowledge is giving us a chance to act in such a way that our next life, we may not go back to Godhead in this lifetime, but we'll make progress. There's no loss. There's no loss or diminution. Anything you get on the material sphere, money, fame, beauty, whatever it is, family, it's all lost. When you leave this body, it's all gone. You're going to a different place. But spiritual assets stay with you. Neha bhikkhamanashosti pratyavaya navidyate. Svabhamapi siddhamasa trayate mahatobhaya. This is in the second chapter, introduction. Krishna says there, na iha abhikrama, means in this endeavor of Krishna consciousness, there's no loss or diminution. Pratyavaya navidyate. Even a little advancement on this path. You chanted Hare Krishna one time at the Hare Krishna temple, then you went off and did some yoga and you forgot about it, like that. But you have that, Hare Krishna. And the next birth, you'll chant a little bit more. You'll be attracted somehow or other. You'll be interested. So and it protects you from the greatest danger, the most fearful type of danger, which is losing the human form of life, going down to some animal life or even lower than that, which just prolongs our punishment in this world. So here Krishna is describing this. He's given the analogy of a fragrance. Living entity material world carries his different conceptions of life in our subtle body. The mind, intelligence, and ego do not perish when the physical body perishes. That's like the template for our next body. As the air carries aromas, thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. So it's a subtle process, invisible. That's why a lot of people say, yeah, reincarnation, I've never seen that. When you're dead, you're dead. So from that philosophy comes, oh, that's the YOLO, isn't it? You only live once. Let's enjoy as much as possible, isn't it? Don't they have t-shirts like that? That's the other one is FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. This is a similar thing. But you don't only live once. That's a big mistake. And Krishna consciousness is based on that whole Vedic understanding. And so again, I always like to share this verse because we often have new people. And I think it's Krishna in 11th canto, I think he speaks this verse. Labdva sudurlamamidam bahusambhavante manushyam artanamanityam apiya dhira turnam yateta nabatena namityava nikshaya saya vishayakara sarvataksya. So he says there that you have attained, after many, many births, this rare human form of life. Sudurlabham means very rare, and compared to all the other. In one lawn out here, there's like a billion, maybe a billion living entities. Each one of those blades of grass, there's a little soul in there. So, and there's maybe 8 billion of us on the whole planet. But anyway, it's rare. After a long time, bahusambhavante, many, many births, and manusham, human form, artadam. It can give the real value of life. In other words, there's so many things that people put value on. In fact, the word arta often means money, right? As in dharma, arta, kama, moksha. It means, we'll be very dutiful and perform our duty nicely in the varnashram, and we'll be able to make money. We'll get the blessings of the goddess of fortune, and we'll have arta, and then we can enjoy kama. we can enjoy different varieties of sense gratification. And ultimately, realizing that we'll get mukti somehow. But if you get attached to the artha and the kama, you're not going to get mukti. You'll come back again to try to enjoy. So this running around like that is what we want to escape from and return to our real nature. Mukti, as defined in the Srimad Bhagavatam second canto, is this famous line: Mukti hidbanyata rupam swarupena vyavastiti. So mukti doesn't mean just getting free from birth, old age, disease, and death. Then what do? Are you merged into Brahman? But that's not fulfilling. We're persons. We have a spiritual form, spiritual feelings, and that are now suppressed by our material body. So the impersonalists think that just getting free of this gross form and going into Brahman, this is the first stage of God realization, the white light, But that's not complete, and you fall down from that again to come back because you want variety. So here, mukti here says, hitva anyata rupam, giving up all these other forms. This form is not our real form. And we have all the forms we'll have, from babyhood and all through. That's not who we really are. That's why they're always changing. We stay the same. We're anksha, we're pure spirit soul. But our body is constantly changing, our mind is constantly changing. So here it says, giving up all these changing forms. Hitva anyata rupam of form. And swarupena, this word swarup is very important, means our actual, our eternal form, which we have, that's just suitable to engage in a certain variety of service to Krishna. You see? And that will be, and it's never boring. Every day is new. There's ever fresh pastimes and adventures and things going on in the spiritual world. So that's and that form, once we get back to it, we'll never come back here again. We'll never make that mistake again. That's why Krishna several times, Yad Gadva Nanavartante Tadama Padamang Mama. That Dhamma, that spiritual world, is my eternal abode. Once one returns there, he doesn't come back. Because we may not remember all these things, but we'll think, yeah, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'm turning away from Krishna and trying to avoid separately. I realize now that my real home is here. So here, this process, we're creating a certain mood and a certain ideas and desires in our material life, and that will carry us to our next life. And we don't know when that may be. This is another thing. There's a beautiful 8-verse poem about the holy name. You may be familiar with the Kevalashtika. Have you heard that? Each line, each verse ends with, what was it? And Harinama, Harinama, Harinama Eva Kevalam. Harinama Eva Kevalam is the lines. So this verse goes like this: Nikshvase nahi vishvaso kadarudho bhavishyati kirtaneya mata balyad harinama eva kevalam. It says, remember that our final breath may come at any time. No matter if we're old and sick or in our youthful prime, so young and old alike should chant the name incessantly. The holy name of Shri Hari is surely all that be. So that chanting incessantly, this is equivalent to the yogis, in the 6th chapter, those who are familiar with the Gita, it's all about Ashtanga Yoga, which is the classic meditation of just, sitting and controlling the breathing and fixing the mind on in that case, the super soul within the heart. So it's a question of, absorbing the mind in the thought of the Lord, you see. So, but it's not, is it practical for us in this helter-skelter world, to really succeed in that? I mean, you have to practice for hours and days and years in order to get that samadhi. But who has the time? How can we go to where is that secluded place where there's no distraction? We're going to go to the Himalayas? No, but we can chant the Hare Krishna mantra. This is practical for us. And this whole movement is built on that. Congregational chanting with the drums and the kirtan, and the singing and dancing, which is basic, but also the personal chanting, meditation, just like a rosary. Lord Chaitanya taught both, and he practiced both also. So that enables us through the sound, the transcendental sound, just like these verses. Prabhupada told us when he wrote this book that these words of Krishna, you're actually non-different from Krishna. You're with him. We shouldn't think that that the potency of the Lord is not here in his words, especially when explained by his pure devotee like this. So, if there are any questions on these points, otherwise we'll go on. Krishna continues his talking about the transmigration process. Very important. Okay. Yes, but boy, where's the other mic? We had one more mic. No, there's 3 mics. There's another blue one. Probably it's in the closet. Yeah. Yeah, because we have the people listening. It's the whole thing. Sometimes they go missing. There we go. Turn it on for him. Thank you, Antonella.
Thank you, Prabhu. I was thinking about the Swarup or the spiritual body. Is that body we're gonna get it or we have it, and in that platform we're like dreaming, and this is what we're going through right now, like the soul is going through it right now.
Prabhupada compares it to a dream. He was once asked to write something definitive about how we felt from the spiritual world, because at a certain point in the movement it was kind of confusing. People thought that how could we fall from there if we're experiencing all this bliss in relation to Krishna, like that. So he compares it exactly like that, to a dream. To all of this, many lives that we have is like a dream. And when we wake up to the reality, we'll regain what we already have. The body is already there, but it's covered by our material conceptions and our material desires and all of this stuff. So it's really a process of purification, as Lord Chaitanya explains, very first words of the Shikshastika, Cheto Darpanamarjanam. That this chanting, it's so powerful that it cleanses the mirror of the mind, and one can perceive his real self. And he says, and the end of that line says, and this is liberation. Cheto Bhava Mahada Vagni Nirvapanam. He compares life, that is birth, old age, to a big forest fire, but it extinguishes the forest fire because we begin to understand who we really are, and so we're dreaming one after another. But because we've lost touch with our reality, the dreams is all we have, and the suffering is very real for the soul. Because we don't know, and we're tied in with the body, and when the body is feeling pain, then we think we're feeling pain, So, this verse is saying the importance of coming to the point of always thinking of Krishna. That's really what Krishna consciousness is. Nikshvasehi Vishvada. We don't know when that last breath may come. I may have a heart attack right now, or something. Or, driving on I-5, or we got all this rain. I mean, these things happen. So, therefore, we need to come to the point of always remembering Krishna, which means ultimately to be in a situation where our activities are also within the realm of service to Krishna. Yes, we have to maintain ourselves in this world, but do it in such a way that we can remember. It's not easy, but it's possible, and that our activities will help us remember Krishna. And will be, by the chanting, by the discipline of chanting a number of rounds every day, then the holy name can stay with your consciousness, especially if your life is molded in such a way that you're doing things for Krishna, you're associating with devotees, and what you have on your walls in your home, that can determine so much. You have pictures of Krishna up there, and the spiritual master. What kind of music you're listening to. All of these things affect our consciousness. So that's really what we want to come down to. And it's possible to wake up from that dream and to leave all of these material bodies and these experiences behind, and to resume our loving relation with Krishna in a very specific rasa, or a very specific relationship. We can be a servant, friend, parent, lover, even kind of just a passive servant, like a flute. this is Shanta Ras. But it's also, what's the quality of Shanta Ras? Always thinking of Krishna and having no desire for anything else. And that's there in the spiritual world as well. But bhakti really begins with active service, And I just because I'm an editor and I deal with these things, so if you're reading Prabhupada's books, he incorporated 2 words to describe the servant ras, the dasya ras, servitorship and servitude. The problem with servitude, if you look it up in the dictionary, that it means slavery. It's not voluntary service, it's involuntary service. But the whole point of bhakti is that it's completely voluntary. You want to do it, otherwise there's no love there. So so we're going to change all those servitudes into servitorship. I mean, English was probably a second language, so sometimes you would do that. Just like we have this phrase of like Mahavishnu or Matsya Avatar is a what is it use? Partial plenary portion. But plenary means full, and portion or partial means part. So can you be a part and full? It's anyway. I don't want to get into that now, but so we're going to make it. They're plenary. These Leela avatars are also plenary. Vamana Dev, he's fully Krishna. Okay, more.
Yeah, I have one more question. Like, how is it specified somewhere where do we get these material desires in the spiritual world?
How did we start out? In other words, how did we fall down? That's the big question. Yeah. Prabhupada would always refer to the fact that in order to have love, there has to be independence. There has to be a minute independence. We have free will, even in the spiritual world. So that's why the servitude doesn't work, because that means you don't have free will. A real slave means you're miserable all the time because you don't have free will. But there are cases in Prabhupada's books where one devotee wrote to me, but here it says when someone's praying to be a slave of Krishna eternally, Yeah, that's a metaphor. Let me be in such that I have no desire other than to serve Krishna. Whatever he wants, I'll do. But that means that you want to do that. And then it'll be a relation of love. It's not going to be a relation of, with chains, with slavery is horrible. Anyway, so there's a verse in the 11th canto, again the 11th canto, which describes how fear arises, because that's like an underlying nature, quality of the material life. I mean, it's not all the time that we feel fearful, but it's right there. Anything can happen. I give the example. I was in this building upstairs chanting my rounds. This is in the early 90s. And suddenly, the whole building is swaying, So, this is an earthquake. I heard about that. So I run down the stairs, but being just a neophyte, instead of running toward the altar and seeing how the deities and see if I need it, I ran out the door and onto the sidewalk. And then I felt like I was on a surfboard, only for about a minute, thank God. But that's what it's like at any time, the fear, because the body is so fragile, and so that fear arises. He says bhayam. The first word in this verse is bhayam, and it includes the answer to your question here. Bhayam dvitiya b'neveshitak syad īśvara tasya viparhiyo asmati tanmaheyato buddha abhajetam bhaktya kayesham gurudeva tatma. So fear arises. And fear, whether it's manifest or subtle, is concomitant to all living entities. You see, these birds that get on my walk. Sometimes the seagulls come. There's also crows come, and there's a restaurant. And inevitably, in the morning, some people threw their sandwiches on the sidewalk. So the birds find them. But as soon as I'm walking and they see I'm walking, there's danger, and so they go out into the street. The cars are coming, but the cars come. They have their defense flying off. You see, so the fear is inevitable in material life. So it arises because when we're conscious of Krishna, we feel there's protection. There's no fear. There's actually no fear. So bhayam dvitiya b'neveshitak, to be absorbed in the dualities of this material world. To be, the good and the bad, the high and the low, and all of these different things. That's the nature of being entangled in the material world. And when we become enthralled in that, and we want to try to become the master and enjoyer, that's our fall down. So we have that option, even in the spiritual world. But those who are, confirmed there, they don't take that option. It's just like me, trying to. I'm across the street now. I don't know if I finished my story about McDonald's. Ironically, for the last 20 years, I've lived in an apartment across the street from McDonald's. But not once have I thought, boy, it would really be nice to get a cheeseburger. No, not even in my dreams. It's gone, never again. Then, if I have knowledge and I don't have fear, of performing, that horrible act. So by Īśvara, turning away from the Isha and becoming enthralled by the dualities and the variety of the material world. Viparyosmati, everything becomes reversed. Instead of being the servant of Krishna, become his competitor. Viparyosmati. How did it happen? Tanmayato, by Krishna's illusory energy. She sees, oh, yeah, this soul is a little bit weak. Let me see if I can attract them. And before you know it, we're covered over. And that's the fall. And the return has to be that we wake up by the intervention of Krishna directly or his representative, out of the mercy. Don't do that. Do this, on our level. How did Prabhupada come? He translated into English. This gave us an entry into these things. Otherwise, it will all be in Sanskrit. We wouldn't do anything. So that was tremendous effort, and he needed helpers. I had a great opportunity to be one of his helpers, a small helper in the editing. So it's a question of misuse of our minute independence, which is always available. That's why it's a voluntary thing. We're choosing to love Krishna, to do things, and that choice is ultimately matures into we would never dream of doing anything else, just like the gopis and Krishna's eternal friends there. That's what we want. Okay, traditionally I end these classes with a few little poems. So if you allow me. We have many new people here who probably haven't heard. So this one is one of my favorites. Most of them are based on Sanskrit verses and things, but this one I just composed. So I have three tools. Of course, I have a dictionary and a thesaurus, which is a synonym dictionary, and a rhyming dictionary. That's also there. So I looked up the words that end in iti, iti. You'll find there's a lot in English. Devotee is one of them, as you see. Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. That's happiness. Where Krishna lives, felicity abounds. With pure simplicity and loving sensibility, all serve him with humility. But when a living entity rejects his true identity, and out of sheer stupidity surrenders to cupidity, he loses all sagacity and with it all capacity to understand reality or curb his sensuality. Abandoning humility, he touts his own ability, forgetting his fragility and fortune's volatility. Immersed in asininity for what seems an infinity of lives devoted to piety, he suffers in anxiety till contact with God's devotee, perhaps of utmost brevity, awakens his affinity for words of the divinity. Perceiving the futility of all his imbecility, the soul regains his sanity and casts away his vanity. Endowed with new humility, he serves with all ability and growing spontaneity his guru and the deity. Regaining his identity, the wayward living entity returns to the fraternity of Krishna for eternity. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So then there's these little tiny ones that you can put on a T-shirt. In fact, believe it or not, this one I think I did. I've been here for quite a while, and I was sitting right there in class. I used to sit on the floor. Now I need to sit on this chair. And the devotee was giving class, and I noticed he had his T-shirt on instead of a kurta. And on the T-shirt was this little poem that I'd written. Since pleasure is a dream, Krishna is supreme. The aim is prem, and the way is the name. Or, don't sin. You can't win. Love God, not the bod. Chant Hare Krishna. In the beach, isn't it? They're worried about the bod, isn't it? So, Hare Krishna. Okay, we have time for one more. So this is the first one I ever wrote. This verse appears twice in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's written by Bilva Mangal Thakur in his Krishna Karnamrita, which is, he's writing his book, he's blind, but he's seeing Krishna within his heart at every moment, you know. So he's writing the book, and as he does, he sees Krishna is really enjoying it. So he said, Krishna Karnamrita, this book is nectar for Krishna's ears. Now you can imagine an ordinary person writing that, how proud you'd have to be. But he's really experiencing it. So Krishna Karnamrita, he writes this simple verse. Maduram maduram vabodasya vibhor. Maduram maduram vadanam maduram. Madhugandhi madhusmitameta daho. Maduram 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 maduram. Now maduram means sweet. Sweet, sweet. Now you can, when the curtains open, we'll see Giridhari, you know, Krishna and Radharani. You look at Giridhari, you can think of this verse. Sweet, sweet is my dear Lord's form. Sweet is still his face so fair. But his honey-scented, gentle smile is sweet beyond compare. So that's why we should be attracted to Krishna. We'll never be unattracted. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. We will now gather for prepare for the 8:15 RT. And then we'll get ready to go on. Harinam. Gaur Premanandi Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.